Okay, for my girls who are homebound, locked out of work, I am going to experiment with one of what I think might be Sarah's favorite breads. Experiment. I have about a cup of rough chopped olives and about 2 cups of finely shredded medium cheddar cheese from Asheville, North Carolina, by the way. And to that I'm going to add some cayenne pepper, maybe a little garlic powder, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to add that to a basic bread recipe, which is very simple. I take 13 ounces of warm water and put in a pre-warmed bowl so the water doesn't get cold. And to that, I am going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And that is right here. And because salt kind of limits the action of yeast, a lot of people tend to skip it. But what frequently happens, and it's happened to me, is that you don't put in enough salt. You get bread that rises really high, too high, and then it collapses on itself. So if you've ever made a loaf of bread that looked beautiful, and then just before you took it out of the oven or right after it just collapsed down, you need a little more salt. Okay, now I'm going to add a package of rapid rise instant yeast and add that. And I'm going to stir that around together. Now I got this recipe off of YouTube, and I've made it before. Normally I like to give this about 10 or 12 minutes to proof, just to start seeing the bubbles come up. But the guy on YouTube just does this, and then he mixes in his flour. This is 2.5 cups of flour. And they say bread flour, but I've used both bread flour and all-purpose flour, not self-rising, but all-purpose flour, and I can't tell any difference. There's a little bit of difference supposedly in the protein content of bread flour and general purpose flour, but I can't see that it makes a difference in the loaves. And I don't know if you can see this, but I'm just kind of mixing this together. What I'm doing is I'm using the straight end of a spoon to bring this together, and that's simply to not get a big glob of flour and dough on the end of the spoon. It's a little easier to get off. So I'm mixing that up. Actually, this looks like it might need just a tad more water. Okay. So I get that all combined. And then I'm going to cover this with saran wrap. And I'm going to let it sit and rise for 1.5 hours. And I got a nice little technique that I've learned, and that is that if you don't have a warm place, and I keep my house kind of cold, you can turn on the oven light and just put the dough in the oven and the light itself will raise the temperature of the inside of the oven to about 78 to 80 degrees or so. So here we got the dough. We're going to put it in the oven now for an hour and a half, and then when I come back, because I want this yeast to work without any possible interference from the olive oil and the cheese. So once it's risen, then I will stretch it and kind of degas it by stirring it again. And at that time, I'll add in the cheese, the olives, and the cayenne pepper. So that's it for right now. Okay, so now it's been an hour and a half. The dough, you can see, has really enlarged in size. It's more than doubled. And again, it was just in the oven with the oven light on. So now what I'm going to do, I want to get the gas out of this, degas it, and I want to stretch the dough a little bit. And again, I'm just going to use this, fork to do that with. But now I'm going to add the cheddar cheese into this. And I have put some garlic powder and some cayenne into the olives already. So now I'm going to dump those in. And this is one of those, let's hope everything turns out, because I've never made olive bread before with this basic recipe. And you just never know for sure whether or not the bread is going to appreciate all that company in the form of the cheese and the olives. So I'm just going to kind of stir this in, roll it around, and I may have gotten, way too much cheese. I don't know till we bake it and see what happens. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of tumble it around. You can kind of see it forming a ball, and it's picking up the stuff on the side of the bowl. Okay. So, and now I'm going to scrape the sides to get all that dough. And then I'm going to let it rise again for 30 minutes. And I'm going to let it rise in this frying pan, because this pan is about the size of the Dutch oven that I'm going to bake this thing in. So let's see how that does. Okay, then I'm going to cover that, and again, just let that sit on the counter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be baking this in this Dutch oven, and in about 15 minutes, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer right now for 15 minutes. And then I'm going to start preheating the oven. It'll probably take 15 minutes to preheat. I have put olive oil, you probably can't see that, in the bottom of this pan with some garlic powder. I'm going to preheat this in the oven. So in 30 minutes, when the bread is finally ready to be baked, and this pan will be hot, and the olive oil should give it a crunchy, crisp bottom that tastes very garlicky because of the garlic salt in there. So I'm going to let this sit for 30 minutes, and in 15 minutes I'll preheat the oven with this thing in it, so that when the dough hits this, it will kind of fry and sizzle, and then I will bake it with the lid on for 30 minutes. And then I will take it out, and I'll take the lid off, and I'll put it back in for anywhere from, say, 3 to 15 minutes, just in order to get a nice brown crust. So, see you in 15. Okay, so I have the very hot Dutch oven with the lid off over here. And I'm going to swirl the oil and garlic powder around. Take the bread or the dough out of the oven and dump it in here. Spread it around just a little bit, and it is sizzling. And this is what it looks like in the pan. So it is cooking. If I can get this thing right. So it's already cooking in that hot pan. And now I'm going to put it in the oven for 30 minutes with this lid on. In about half an hour or so. Okay, it's the moment of truth. I had it baking now for 10 minutes to get a little brown crust. And we are going to dump this out and see what it looks like. Ooh, listen to that crust. That puppy is hot. And there it is, sports fans. Look at that loaf. Okay. Now we're gonna wait the 20 minutes to let it cool right. Oh, crunchy, huh? Oh, that is nice white bread in there. Can you see that? Now I made some Italian seasoned olive oil dipping sauce. So first, oh, good bread. Tastes like olive and cheese. And now a little olive oil dipping sauce. Got it in the video now. I have some serious dinner to eat here. Bye. Love.